Hello, everyone watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify. Don't know what time of day you're watching it. It's another episode of NRG Insights. At the moment, we're doing the Rising Star series, which is speaking to the young people in the market that are really sort of, making a name for themselves and kind of pushing forward and finding out a little bit more about what it takes to be successful as the next generation come through, which I'm sure is a pain point for a lot of people, as we talked about before, in that getting fresh blood into the industry. So on that, I've got Caelan with me from REIM Capital. Thanks for joining me, Caelan.
Thanks for having me, Marcus.
No problem at all. And you were suggested by a few people as well. So good effort on that already. So tell me about your kind of journey up to what you're doing at the moment at REIM.
Yeah, sure. So I started at REIM very shortly after I graduated. I had about a month and a half off before I started working. So everyone kind of goes and does their travelling. I did about 2 weeks of it and then came straight into the industry. So seeing everyone's photos of Bali and Thailand, I sat there
in an office in Mayfair, not quite the same.
it could be worse.
Yeah.
But no, it's like literally kind of went like straight into the deep end into the corporate world. Got a lucky break, kind of knowing the owners quite well. But yeah, it's just about kind of what you do with it. So I started off in quite a loose grad program where it was a case of, they showed me different sectors. I was sat in underwriting, case management, back end loan management and collections, all the way to sales as well. Within about, let's say about 4 or 5 months, they were like, right, you think you're going to be kind of specialising in that case management / sales area. Yeah. So, they had me doing KYC review, kind of like looking over docs and all that kind of stuff. So you kind of learn all the different areas of the business, so to speak.
Do you think that's helped you sort of put you in good stead for the fact that you understand the journey?
Massively so. I think with kind of learning all the bit about everything, you kind of understand what the process is like, and in that sense, the questions that brokers are going to ask or borrowers are going to ask, and you can really just kind of direct them. There's a lot of things that brokers will always ask, why do we have to do X, Y, and Z, or why do we have to give this stock, or why do we have to kind of go through this process, right? But I think being able to explain it to them because you know it quite well, inside out, I think it makes all the difference in kind of explaining what our thought process is behind kind of our process, right? And
we said that before, it is about the why. It's about understanding the reasons you got to do stuff. Because otherwise, it feels like you're jumping through hoops for the sake of it. But if you can articulate that, then that's the magic.
That's exactly it. No one really likes being told because I said so. If you can give someone a good reason as to why you're doing something, I think people start to get it and you kind of understand. You might not agree with it, but at least you understand it and you kind of know, okay, cool, this is what the process is going to be like and this is how we're going to move forward.
Yeah, good. And you've moved, rightly so, into the kind of the sales side of things, the case management, the business development side. How's that going?
I'm loving it. When I first started, I had my BDM, Mike Blessing, who was at REIM, kind of sit there and go, right, we're going to do the old school thing of sitting through the NACFB list, and you're going to cold call and cold email every single one of them. Yeah. And I think a lot of people kind of get a bit scared by it. And at first you kind of do, you go, it's going to be a bit daunting hearing no every other, every phone call. But you kind of get past it after a while.
What's very interesting is I sat with Mike Blessing only 3 days ago, and he was actually singing your praises about that, saying he didn't, for your age and for the kind of the lack of experience, you were happy to pick up the phone, happy to speak to brokers, happy to say I'm not sure, but I'll find out. And he said that's an incredible trait because we were he was actually singing your praises.
No, that means a lot. I'll have to buy Mike a beer next time I see him. But yeah, I think it is important just kind of being able to pick up the phone. I think we're in an age now where people kind of sit behind emails and behind messages. I think having that old school mentality, just being able to pick up the phone and actually have a conversation with someone, it goes a long way.
Yeah. And you've learned that quite quickly as well, right? Because you're right. A lot of people, especially in your generation of phone isn't your main media either. That was our only media. So it's just in regards to kind of that level of communication is something you've got to learn, right? Because you're not always on the phone you're Snapchatting and WhatsApp, etc. You know what I mean? Social media's changed so much that the phone isn't our normal way we do things now. So that's something you've got to kind of learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, my parents, my granddad's always kind of instilled in me that you have to be able to speak to people, right? And also by that means have to know a little bit about everything, and really being able to just connect with people on a deeper basis. Really, especially being in a relationship oriented industry, I think it goes the extra mile. Yeah. Kind of there's a part where everything is transactional, but then if you can kind of pass that level and actually get to know the person behind the screen or behind the email, behind the phone, it goes a long way, especially in such a small industry like bridging.
Yeah. Do you know what? Funny enough, I was having the same conversation with someone outside this industry the other day, just about how you separate yourself from other people. And it is that relationship management, or being able to empathise with people and speak to people on a human basis. I think that's the reason why we haven't been taken over by the robots just yet.
And hopefully we stay like that for quite a while.
Yeah. So how was it? Like, obviously you're doing all those cold calls and that kind of thing, and like I said, you're spoken very highly of by brokers that I know. So you've clearly got there quickly. But how was it? Was there kind of an imposter syndrome about being young or not fully experienced, or were you just happy to dive in? And have you had any barriers in regards to that? In regards to people, or I suppose you don't know until you know.
I think you get the odd kind of rude customer that hasn't had their morning coffee yet or something like that. But I think with stuff like that, you've got to remember, like, you're pitching to people and you're interrupting their day almost a little bit. So you can understand if someone's not the happiest when they get a call that they don't want to get at 9:30 in the morning on a Monday.
Yeah.
But I think when you get past that point and you kind of develop your own style of how to call people almost and how to kind of just break that barrier, it gets to the point where people actually like want to have a bit of a conversation. People like to be asked how their weekend was, have a little bit of a chit chat. And like I said, you either whether you're speaking about the football or speaking about what's happened that weekend or the weather or whatever it may be, you kind of then break down those barriers of no's to what can we do to help.
I mean, the more someone likes you, the more they want to do business with you, right? You get that kind of, they want you to succeed, and that comes from the rapport building. And having said that, those angry customers, like I always say to myself, I don't know what day they're having.
Yeah,
I mean, exactly. I don't know what's happening their end, so it's probably not them. I mean, some people are knobheads, but what you can do that. So so you've gone and now you do a bit. You go out, meet people as well now, right? So talk to me about that step, about going from like, telephone based, bashing out the phones, to then getting to go out and meet brokers and kind of do that face to face stuff. How's that transition been?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I think the boys at REIM have really been quite receptive to me going out and meeting people. I think they know that all too well, that kind of being face to face with clients and brokers is the best way to kind of get in their face and really get business from them, right? Again, you kind of want to be out meeting people constantly, because I think, especially like I said, we're in a very small industry, and if you can really capture a market and actually get people to back the person behind the company, I think it makes a lot of difference. I think there was a LinkedIn post from Nick Christophe from Caris, and he actually said being able to deliver is actually more important than the rate. And if you know that person,
otherwise everyone will go to the cheapest lender, wouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly. But there's a difference between being able to get the cheapest rate and being able to deliver on time. And if you can trust that person to say what they mean, and actually be able to deliver on when they say it, it makes all the difference. And I think the only way you can do that is by building that trust when you know that person.
Yeah.
Like I said, they know that all too well, and I think from there they've kind of taken me into meetings when I first started doing sales. They were like, look, this is how I pitch the company, and you kind of learn little tidbits of how to sell. I was
going to say that. Have you kind of created your own style yet, or are you still learning?
Well, I think always trying to absorb different things and trying to put in little comments of how other people would say things. I think I've been lucky to have some good mentors behind me as well, and they've really shown me kind of what their styles are. And all the best mentors have always said, don't copy someone's style, merge it with your own, because at the end of the day, everyone's individual, and you kind of have to.
You lose the authenticity if you just copy someone else's, don't you? Exactly. And I mean, we'll talk about your mentors through in a minute, but you've got mentors who are different ages to you, very different kind of personalities. It would just come across as very disingenuous if you sounded just like them,
Exactly. I think being a young person, you have to kind of give it a little bit of a spin, because like I said, otherwise you sat there with 500 other people that are doing the exact same thing. If you can't do anything different, then what's the point?
Yeah. Before we touch on the broker side of things, if you do something for the young people in the industry, right? Have you set something up? Talk to me about that. Is that an ongoing thing?
Yeah, so I started the Young People in Bridging Association. It's essentially just a networking event for young people to kind of meet up and kind of inspiring the future leaders of the next generation, if that makes sense.
Nice. How's that going?
Really good, thank you. We've actually just partnered with Caris for the next event, which we're currently literally probably going to put out tickets in the next coming days for. So I'm super excited to kind of get that out. I think after the inaugural kind of event, people were really receptive to it.
Yeah,
Even
I
more
know
than
people were really positive actually. I thought it was good, but that's what you need as well, right? With people speaking the same language as you, having the same problems, being able to kind of empathise with each other, and it's useful. I've got peers that I deal with who are very similar ages to me, who have the same problems. It's to say it works the way up, all the way up through the ranks.
Absolutely. I think, having worked with Simon in the past as well, we went to an expo and literally every 5 steps he took, someone was bumping into him saying, "Hi, how are you doing, mate? Like, what's been going on?" I think having worked in that industry for 20 years, right, or over 20 years, he's obviously built up those contacts over time, and everyone in that position equally does the same. From what I've heard from brokers at big brokerages to like your sales directors and your CEOs of companies, they all have spent time doing that networking. So someone who I really enjoy what I do, and I can see myself doing this for the next 5-10 years minimum, right? And I know there's going to be other people that feel the same way. Obviously, I don't. Had you asked me when I first started uni what I'd be doing, I wouldn't even know what bridging was. But I really enjoy what I'm doing. Finance. Yeah. But I think with that, you kind of go, right, okay, there's a lot of other people, a lot of other ambitious people at this age that are going to want to be aspiring to be owners of companies, sales directors.
Oh yeah, exactly. The people you move up the ranks with now, like I'm speaking to people who I placed 10 years ago, who are now sales directors, who are now clients, so 100%. If you're staying in the same industry, that network is so important. You've got to make that, and networking is a forever thing as well, right? You never complete it. Because for me, I'm networking now with the next generation because they're the next level of people. And we also means we have people in our business who are younger than me who are looking at that succession plan, because you've got to look at the future.
Absolutely.
As in, we'll be dinosaurs soon. We appreciate that, and the next level are coming through. So, and also, let's talk about that mentorship side of things. So, you've been very lucky with the people that you've got to be around you. So, talk to me about the importance of how the kind of the mentors in your life have worked so well for you to get you to where you are at the moment.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. So when I first started, it was we had quite a lean team. I had our head of credit, Caelen, who's now at Century. He was a big influence for me. Kind of, he created a culture where it was very easy to ask the right question, or very, really easy to ask any question.
In my experience, I would put Kai up there with some of the best, like in my top 10 of people managers, and there's not many. Like the Mike Allisons, Jamie Pritchards, etc., that I think are at that level where they make people so comfortable. Fantastic people managers. Those guys, to work under those guys is, I suppose you don't really see it because they're like the first people you've seen. But it's a massive difference between having that and that kind of high pressure, or not being able, like you said, not being able to ask questions types. It's a big deal. Not Absolutely. That I can't buy that, but
No, I think like you said, he really created an atmosphere where it was very kind of easy to get on with people, and he really tried to create a culture in which people got along. I think that's the most important thing. You're sitting in the trenches with people for 8 to 9 hours a day. You want to be able to actually get along with these people.
Yeah.
So being able to kind of ask questions and him explain things, and just really sat down and actually kind of taught me, I think makes a big difference. Otherwise, you kind of sat there. I think in a fast-paced environment, you kind of sit there trying to learn everything, and because there's a lot to learn, you kind of sit there going, "Okay, I know this stuff." And people ask, "Do you know what you're doing?" And you kind of say, "Yeah," and you kind of going along with it. It feels a bit like an imposter. I didn't have that when I first started because he was so good at kind of making me feel like, okay, it's fine to ask questions.
It's okay to not know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
As long as it's not the third time. You have to learn. But genuinely, that is the magic between, I think, about getting younger people into the industry as well. So it's quite frightening coming in with no knowledge, no experience, and then working with someone who isn't prepared to give you the time of day. Yeah. And this is really poignant to this podcast as well, because everyone's struggling to find young people, but you have got to put in the hours, and you have got to have the patience and kind of temperament, like people like Kai and Simon, etc., that you can, you're willing to put in the man hours and not moan about the fact that it's going to take time.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, like we've got the next 30-40 years to look forward to, and especially kind of the guys my age. And if you knock it down, I think if you knock it down for the first 5-10 years, you're going to be laughing like in your 30s and 40s. So,
but you know what? Funny you say that, because, and I keep saying this on this Rising Star thing, so it's going to sound like I'm repeating myself. you say that like it's normal, like it's absolutely fine. But I speak to people your age who do struggle with that concept that you have to. I say to people, even if you look at my job, if they want it like the business development that I do, I say, look, if you work your ass off for like 5 years, really, really graft, get that phone going, go out and see everyone. I said, it does get easier. And you do get paid during that 5 years as well. It's not like, it just gets easier. Like my job, I love my job. I'm very, very lucky that I get to work with my friends, because I've built that up. But the concept of that to someone in your generation, not you obviously, but the people I speak to who they can't understand even 5 years in front, because we live in this instant gratification world where everything's now. So
Absolutely.
although you feel like it's a normal thing, it's really not. Like you're head and shoulders above your peers just by the fact that you've got a graft for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people, as soon as people finish uni or they finish their A-levels and kind of figure out what they want to do with life, especially like the guys my age, I think you're presented with two kind of paths. You either spend your 20s enjoying it and making the most of it, you go travelling, you meet loads of friends, but you're not going to be as secure in your 30s or your 40s. Or you could go down the other path of knuckling down in your 20s, won't be as like, enjoy it. Granted, I think what we do is...
Either way, you'll miss out on something.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you've just got to be okay with whichever path you pick, right? Because you can't have both. You have to just pick one and stick with it.
Knuckle down and do 6 months backpacking. You can't. You and obviously with REIM, you've kind of built up to your business. Do you out on the road majority of the time now?
I'm kind of doing the hybrid between a BD and a BDM at this point. So like my Mondays and Tuesdays are mostly kind of in the office, getting kind of my leads in, and converting our deals from inquiry to packaging and kind of moving it into underwriting. And then Wednesdays and Thursdays are still kind of quite often in the office, but out at the NACFB show on Wednesday. Thursdays,
right bang smack in the middle of London. Doesn't take much to get out and see brokers. So what advice could you give to people you're kind of in your journey that maybe aren't where you are yet, that want to go into that kind of BD role, or they're looking to get to push on in the sales environment? What do you think separates them from the crowd when it comes to being successful at that?
Yeah, I think for me it was a case of I had a lead from, like I said, one of these random cold calls from the NACFB, and someone said to me, we're happy to meet, do you want to do it? And it was, I'd only been in about 2-3 months. I went and did it on my lunch break, and met this guy, this broker. It turned into a deal. We managed to get it all the way to underwriting. Unfortunately, valuations, it fell apart. But that experience alone means that you kind of really, it just shows willingness, doesn't it? It shows that you're actually willing to go above and beyond, and sometimes you have to do that shine a little bit. I
also think it's about being brave as well, right? You've got to go out and get it.
Exactly.
It's not, the business isn't going to come in, unfortunately. You've got, and especially not just the business, the position that you want to be in is not just going to fall on your lap.
Exactly, you have to kind of really graft, like you said, for it, and I think it shows when people are a bit more kind of like ready to sink their teeth into something. Yeah. Whereas, that's.
So this is a question I've asked everyone near the end, and I think it's quite poignant. I'm going to put them all together in a montage. That's why I'm asking it right at the same time. But what are the character traits that you think have set you apart from maybe some of your peers, or the fact that you are going through this kind of rise relatively quickly? What do you think the character traits or skill sets are you already leaning on? Obviously, willing to nurse we already had, so you can't pick that. But what do you think it is that kind of separates you, or what advice can you give to people who are looking to build on those kind of skill sets or character traits? Traits.
I think for me, it's a case of I was taught just kind of be a bit more give it a bit more of an old school approach. I think like we were saying earlier, people have lost that element of human touch almost. I think really just kind of leaning on that. I think there are some massive kind of names in the industry that have really built just their character as their brand. You look at guys like Caelen from Project & Co. Again, people like Kai, who are just authentically themselves.
What, me? You mentioned me?
Absolutely.
Too late. I have to tell you to mention me, it doesn't count. No, go on, mate,
I think, like we were just saying, being just who you are, and being okay with the fact that some people just aren't going to like your character. I think
that, right? It's not the end of the world if someone doesn't like you, right? I think I'm authentic on every different medium that I speak to people on. So if you don't like me, that's cool. That means I've broken down that thing where we have to meet, and then you realise you don't like me, and we're not. Like, that's great. What I mean? If you're inauthentic, then you can fool people into it for a minute, but you can't fool people long term. So I think that's the number one thing, is to kind of be yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. People will really kind of like see past the facade that you put up if you just try and be someone else or not try and be like true to who you are. I think that's just the most important thing, really.
Absolutely, thank you, Matt. I appreciate that, and I really appreciate the time. And I think that is quite poignant. The subject, the things we talked about. I think we can learn a little bit from all of these Rising Star ones, and I think it's really important that we can't, like I said at the end, I will be putting these together because us as the older generation, we need to change to get you guys in, you know. So I think it's really poignant to find out exactly what kind of makes you tick and what you need next. So I appreciate that. Now, if people want to get hold of you, Caelan, to talk about the young persons, I did write down Young People in Bridging Association. What's the best way to get hold of them? If they just want to have a chat with you, obviously brokers, etc., want to talk to you about the bridging side of things. What's the best way to get hold of you?
Well, I mean, like I said, best on the phone. Like, best thing to do is just give me a call.
Yeah.
Also just set up our email address, so it's just caelen@youngpeopleinbridging.com. So if you do want to give an email or drop a line, yeah, that's probably going to be another easy way
really,
to do it.
I genuinely as well, that's a bit of above and beyond as well, that you just, you realise the importance of relationships at quite a young age, and I think that's kudos to you.
Oh, thanks, Marcus. It means a lot.
Amazing. Thank you, mate. I appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone watching and listening. I hope you found some important nuggets out of that. And yeah, again, Caelan, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Bye-bye.